I will set in a comfortable meditation posture and close the eyes. Put your attention on the silence that's always there deep in the mind. Connect with that silence. Become the silence. You are the silent witness. From this perspective of the silent witness, listen to the words of the Yoga Vasishtha. Book 4, Chapter 26. Continuing with verse 41. Enraged demons flung up and hurled huge hills against the gods, falling fires, which, like a wild conflagration, melted the hard stones to liquid water. The shadow of the demons' weapons spread a dark night in the sky, which the gods destroyed by the artificial flame of lightning, blazing like so many suns in heaven. The fire of the lightning dried up the waters of the raining clouds, and the clashing arms emitted a shower of fire on all sides. The shower of thunder arms broke down the battery of mountain ramparts, and the sleep weapon of slumber dispelled that by its counteraction. Some bore the sawing weapon, while others held the Brahmastra, the invincible weapon of warfare that dispels the darkness of the field by its flashing. The air was filled with shells and shots fired by firearms. Machines for hurling stones crushed the missile weapons of fire. War chariots with their uplifted flags and moonlight discs moved like clouds about the horizon, while their wheels rolled with loud roaring under the roof of heaven. The constant thunder of heaven were killing demons in numbers, who were again restored to life by the great art of Shukra, which gave immortality to demonic spirits. Now the gods were victorious, and now flying away defeated. Now they were looking to their good stars, and now to the inauspicious ones in vain. They looked upon heaven with uplifted heads and eyes for signs of good and evil. But from the heaven above, the world on earth below appeared like a sea of blood. The rage of stubborn enmity made the world seem like a forest of full-blown red Kimsuka flowers, and like a sea of blood filled with mountains of dead bodies. Dead bodies hanging on tree branches appeared as their fruit, moving to and fro by the breath of winds. The roof of the sky was filled with forests of long and large arrows, and with mountains of headless trunks with their 100 arms. As these torsos leaped and jumped in the air, they plucked the clouds and stars and the heavenly cars of the celestial with their numerous arms, and hurled their mountain-like missiles, arms, and clubs and arrows to the heavens. The sky was filled with the broken fragments of buildings falling from the 7 spheres of heaven. Their constant fall rained a noise like the roaring of flood clouds. These sounds were resounded by the elephants of the deep, Patala, while the bird of heaven, Garuda, was snatching gigantic demons as its prey. The dread of the demons drove these celestial deities, the Siddhas and Satyas, deities who guard sacred rites, and the gods of the winds, together with Kinnaras, Gandharvas, and Charanas, from all their different quarters to one indistinct side. Then there blew a tremendous tornado, like the all-destroying north wind of universal desolation, laying waste the trees of the Garden of Paradise and threatening to destroy the gods. The thunders of heaven were splitting and breaking down mountains flung on the face of the sky. Chapter 27. Brahma advises the defeated gods to foster the demons' ego. Vasishtha related, as the war of the gods and titans raged violently on both sides, and their bodies were cut by the other's weapons, streams of blood gushed out from their wounds, like waterfalls in the Ganges basin. Gods caught into the snare of demigods groaned and roared aloud like lions. Maya, with his stretching arms, was crushing the bodies of the gods. Kata was harassing them in their unequal challenge with them. The demons waged their battle with the rage of the midday sun and put to flight the Aravata elephant of Indra, the leader of the gods. Gods dropped down with their bodies, gored with wounds and sprouting with blood. Their armies fled on all sides like the currents of a river. overflowing and breaking down its bank. Dhamma, Vyala, Kata pursued the flying and fleeting gods in the same manner as a raging fire runs after wood for its fuel. The demons sought and searched long after the gods in vain, for they had disappeared like deer and lions among the thickets after breaking loose from their traps. Failing to find the gods, the generals Dhamma, Vyala, and Kata returned with cheerful hearts to their chief in his home in the infernal region. The defeated gods halted a while, then prayed to Almighty Brahma in order to consult him. On the means of gaining victory over the demons. Brahma then appeared to the blood-smeared gods with his purple countenance. Like the bright and cooling moonbeams appear in the evening on the surface of the sea. Colored with the crimson colors of the setting sun. The gods bowed down before Brahma and complained of the danger that was brought upon them by Sambara through his generals Dhamma, Vyala, and Kata, and whose doings they fully described to him. The judging Brahma, having heard and considered all this, delivered the following encouraging words to the host of gods before him. Brahma said, "You will have to wait another 100,000 years before you can destroy Sambara under the arms of Hari, Vishnu, in an open engagement. Today you have been forced to flee by the demonic Dhamma, Vyala, and Kata, who have been fighting with their magical arts. They are elated with pride at their great skill in warfare, but it will soon vanish like the shadow of a man in a mirror. These demons, led by their ambition to annoy you, will soon be reduced under your might, like birds caught in a snare. The gods, being devoid of ambition, are free from the vicissitudes of pain and pleasure. They have become invincible by destroying the enemy through their patience. Those who are caught and bound fast in the net of their ambition are led away by the thread of their expectation and are surely defeated in their aims. It's like birds are caught with a string. The learned who are devoid of desire and are unattached to anything in their minds are truly great and invincible, as nothing can elate or depress them at any time. A man, however great and experienced he may be, is easily overcome by a boy when he is enticed by his greed to pursue after everything. The knowledge that this is I and these are mine is the bane of human life. One with such knowledge of his self and egoism becomes the receptacle of evils, like the sea of briny waters. He who confines his mind within a narrow limit, for lack of his great and extended views, is called dastardly and narrow-minded, in spite of all his learning and wisdom. He who puts a limit on his soul, which is both unbounded and infinite, surely reduces his divine grace to minuteness by his own making. If there is anything in the world beside the one self that may be yours or worth your desire, you may long to have it. But all things, being only parts of the universe, there is nothing particular for anyone to have or seek. Reliance on earthly things is the source of unhappiness, while our disinterest with all things is the fountain of everlasting joy. As long as the gods are independent of worldly things, they must remain invincible. But if they are dependent on them, they will perish like a swarm of gnats in the flame of a wildfire. It is man's inner desire that makes him miserable in himself and allows him to become subdued by others. Otherwise, worm-like man is as firm as a rock. Where there is any desire in the heart, it is thickened and hardened in time, just like everything in nature increases in its bulk in time. But not so things that are not in existence, such as the lack of desires. O Indra, if you want to cause their destruction, try to foster both ego, selfishness, and ambition of Dhamma and others for their universal domination. Know that it is the greed that causes poverty and all dangers to mankind, just like the karanja tree is the source of its bitter and pernicious fruit. All those men who rove about under the bondage of greed have bid farewell to their happiness by subjecting themselves to misery. One may be very learned and well informed in everything, and he also may be a noble and great man. but he is sure to be tied down by his greed, just like a lion is tied by his chain. Greed is known as the trap of the mind, which is situated like a bird in its nest of the heart, as it is within the hollow of the tree of the body. A miserable man, by his greed, becomes an easy prey to the clustered clutches of death, just like a bird is caught in a boy's net and lies panting on the ground owing to its greed. You gods need not bear the burden of your weapons anymore, nor toil and moil in the field of war any longer, but try your best to inflame the pernicious greed of your enemies to the utmost. Know, O chief of the gods, that no arm or weapon or any program or policy is able to defeat the enemy until they defeat themselves by their lack of patience and excess of their greed. Dhamma, Yala, and Kata have become elated with their success in warfare. Now they must cherish their ambition and foster their greed to their ruin. No sooner have these ignorant creatures of Sambara gained their highest desires than you are sure to foil their vain attempts. Now, you gods, excite your enemies to the war by your policy of creating in them an ambition and intense desire for conquest. By this, you will gain your object. They, being subject to their desires, will be easily subdued by you. But nobody that is led blindfold by his desires in this world is ever master of himself. The path of this world is either even or rugged according to the good or restless desires of our hearts. The heart is like the sea in its calm after storm, when its waves are still as our subsided desires, or as boisterous as the stormy sea with our increasing greediness. Now continuing, established as the silent witness. Balance all karmic traces that have been activated and enlivened by the reading of the Yoga Vasishta. Do this by performing Trimana Sanyama on the esoteric Mahamantra. Jai Gurudev.